So recently on Twitter, everything blew up when Stacks tweeted out some information about the rival series qualifiers, and a lot of players, maybe over the top, disagreed with him and used some, I guess, unprofessional words to describe it. But it does raise a really good point, and we saw a discussion on Reddit about this entire point, about whether the qualifiers are suitable for something like Rival Series or realistically any tournament, whether it's OCE, NA, whether it's a community tournament or the biggest tournament possible. And I think obviously there's a lot of context there. You often don't need to have an incredibly robust tournament to qualify people into a small local community event compared to something that could make or break your professional career. And I will read out Stax' tweet. It says, "People need to understand something, and it's one of those very few things I constantly disagree with Cloudfuel about. The goal of RLCS Rival Series qualifiers, anything with a bracket, is not to objectively quantify who the best teams are and reward them for being the best. It's about the entertainment factor of having a bracket and top players playing under that level of stress." And I actually agree with him on some of this, and I disagree with him on other points that he is making here. And so we can kind of talk directly about this tweet and a few things. And I would have to point out straight off the most correct thing I would have to say is about the entertainment factor. Yes, you need to have that entertainment factor. It needs to be important matches that really matter. And funnily enough, I think when it comes to a lot of their players and even viewers that I see on Reddit, they comment about we should have a double round robin. We should have 12 teams in league play. It should be this, it should be that. Basically saying we want to have a season that lasts 10 weeks. And that actually, in terms of entertainment factor, I completely dislike as well. It's, having 10 weeks of league play where the matches don't really matter that much. You could lose a series against a team and still win a series against that team later on. So there's no real implication to that match. And this is an entertainment industry. It's esports. And that is, it's all about getting sponsors, selling views to viewers. How do you get the most viewers? You have the most important matches. So he is completely right in there. I would say, though, it's not about having players play under that level of stress necessarily. I don't think that's part of the entertainment factor, as he's saying. But it is very important that a team should be able to play under a high-pressure situation. I think a lot of people wouldn't like a more robust setting for a lot of qualifiers, but it is really important that you can show up when you're the most nervous. If you can't play under the nerves of a big double elimination bracket, how can you be expected to play in league play or in the regional finals or at the world championship if you're feeling nervous? However, the points that I start disagree with him is in terms of maybe some of the rest of what he said, or even, I guess, the importance that he's placed on that. And I think the major thing when it comes to Rocket League is that it is really hard to consistently beat a team. It's the kind of game where things can come down to the tiniest margins and maybe not even just purely playing better on a single day. You obviously, everyone knows that feeling of having a day where you're just feeling great as an individual, as a team, but also just about how things go your way in a certain match. When it comes to Rocket League, you could be in attack and you have maybe 3 or 4 different options to pass, to hit the roof, to dribble, or to take a shot. They might be your 4 options, and maybe your opponents can shut down half of those. So you've got, in essence, a 50% chance of scoring a goal if you choose one of the correct options. And you might just have one of those days where whatever you do, the opponents just seem to get the right choice every single time, or you make the wrong choice every single time and the goal gets saved because they've pre-jumped to the top left corner and you were expecting that they'd go to the right-hand side of the net because, obviously that was the most shootable part of the net, but then they ended up on the other side, and it just doesn't go your way. And the major example of that is last season at the World Championship. On the first day, every single team went to Game 5. There were Game 5 overtimes, there were reverse sweeps, there were ridiculously close matches. And if that went any different, if Cloud9 didn't beat NRG in Game 5, I think it was an overtime as well, it could have been NRG winning the World Championship and Cloud9 coming, I think it was 7th. That's a major difference. That completely changes the result. And all of a sudden, instead of Cloud9 being considered the best team in the world because of their performance on day 2 and day 3 of last season, they could have been considered, outside of that. Maybe the second best team in NA. So it is a huge difference. And I think we still need to have tournaments like that where everything is on the line, where it is all about that one big day performance. But when it comes back to qualifiers, it does feel really bad when you have to wait another 4 to 6 months to play again. That can be really tough, and it could be heartbreaking to the point where you don't continue playing. I ran a format, and so did Rocket Street this season for South America, that I think takes it to the other extreme. We had a format where you had a double elimination to find in OCE the top 16 teams, and they went into 2 pools of 8, and the top 2 of each of those went straight into league play, and the next 2 of each went, or maybe the next 4 of each, that's right, went into a play-in, a double elimination bracket where there was to find another 3 teams. Now, of course, that's a really robust format. It's great for finding the top teams, and it is really, quality. It's about finding the top teams, but there was a massive problem. And there's a massive problem with Rocket Street. You don't have those big qualifying matches. You don't have that big moment where a team is like, yes, we've done it. They qualified potentially halfway through the day and they're just playing out the rest of it, or they qualify at the end and they might not even know that they qualified because they're waiting on someone else's results to come through. That is not good viewing at all. In OCE, the only reason we ran that is because I knew that there wasn't qualifying matches on that day. But even then, I think I regret running that format. I think overall it's not very good. We didn't get to see those teams qualify. We're missing a major part of their story and their journey into RLCS, into league play. And I think that's a major shame. But I do think the idea is there. I think the major importance of having that group stage is that players earn their seeding. In a double elimination bracket, coming into RLRS qualifiers, coming into the OCE qualifiers, coming into this season's South American qualifiers, you don't really have a way of earning your seeding. It's up to the judgment of a committee or whoever is seeding the tournament, but you can't truly earn the seeding from a performance during the tournament if it is one big or, a double elim into another double elim, because double elim doesn't find pure seeding. So that can be a shame if you just end up in the wrong part of the bracket. It might be the difference between you making it or not. The group stage is great. The round robin is excellent because you are going to be seeded from that round robin. If you do terribly on that day, you will end up at the bottom of that round robin. And if you do well on that day, you will come out on top and you will have earned your number 1 seed or your number 3 seed or whatever it is. And there's no argument that you should be seeded somewhere or very close to or exactly where you end up because you worked for it. But I think realistically having people qualify from that bracket is where it failed. And I think if I was to do it again, I would probably put the top 2 teams in something like a second stage of an upper bracket, the next 2 upper bracket of a double elim, the next 2 teams or the next 4 teams in a previous stage of that double elim, and then 2 more teams, like for 8 teams total, in the lower half of a bracket, or just the top 4 teams in the upper bracket of a double elim and 4 teams in the lower bracket of a double elim. Something similar to that, where at the end of it, we are going to see a specific number of teams qualify. Every single team qualify into that bracket. So if it was 128 teams that make it through stage 1 of the qualifiers, maybe you do it over 2 different tournaments instead of 4. You end up getting the chance to run a large number of pools of 8 teams or anything like that, and have that run as not only an extra step, but a seeding step. That's very important. Of course, that's difficult too. You do have to play more matches. I know that there is a hybrid solution out there, and I think even Psyonix are probably looking into some different ways to make the qualifiers. I know that Rocket Street will probably do the same, and even Gfinity over in OCE will be looking at the best way. At the moment, though, the one thing that Stacks is completely correct with, and I think the reason that the format is the way it is because entertainment is the number one factor in terms of actually getting people to watch the broadcast. And that is the number one factor in terms of esports as a whole. I would like to see people experiment more with it. I want to see what's going on. But I think it's also nice to see all the people in the discussion. I think a lot of people in the comments agreed that something more hybrid would be very good. I just think that the way that we've done hybrid solutions in the past misses a major factor of that entertainment piece. So there's still definitely room to grow.